Well, welcome everyone. We have a lot of good stuff for you today. I have a interview with our Agile product coach and expert, Bob Niwa. I'll be adding him just a moment, but just want to give you folks time to pull up either your mobile device or your web browser, get a chance to follow this. Make sure to follow us on LinkedIn to be notified of these events in the future. We've been doing them weekly. And if you've missed one, make sure to go over to YouTube where we are putting the archive of the sessions. And then you can follow us on YouTube and subscribe, and that way you get notified once they get uploaded and can share those. Part of our hope is not just sharing current thoughts, what do we see as Agile coaches out there in the field, but also enabling you to share some of that information in a really light, easy way, bite-sized nuggets that you can put in front of your teams, in front of your leadership and management, really trying to help those trying to do this transformational work, educate others, encourage others, influence others, kind of a service back to the community. So be looking for that as well. And like I said, the easiest way is just to follow us on LinkedIn and on YouTube, and that way you just get notified. As well as if you're not already on our email list, make sure to check that out. You can find out more on how to get on that list from our website. But that way you also get the email, not just of what these sessions are, but if you've gone through the leadership classes, you'll get notified about the Certified Agile Leadership alumni sessions that we do each month, which is a lean coffee. The preview sessions where we actually just take a bite of the content and cover it so that you can educate others in light touch, or see if that class is worth checking out for you as well. And then what training classes do we have coming up? And again, we try to cover everything that's really needed, whether that's your CSD, your advanced CSD, Scrum Master, Product Owner, Advanced Scrum Master and Product Owner classes, Certified Agile Leadership, etc. So just take a look at that. But if you're not on our email list, you might miss some of those things that are coming up that we're really trying to curate. So, and I know Bob actually is going to be involved in one of those coming up for OCPM, but I'll let him share a little bit more. So let me pull up Bob now, and here we go. Let's see if the magic works. I'm going to see if I can just put you on that. Hey! That was on me. I think there's too many buttons to click. I clicked them all. So, welcome, Bob. Thanks for taking some time. A lot of fun.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, one, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background experience, and maybe some of the things you've been up to recently. I know we walked through a couple of areas of interest to you, but maybe for those who don't know who Bob Niwa is, tell us a little bit about Bob.
Sure. So I'm an old guy. So I started working in software development in internal IT organizations back when I started. It was management information systems. And through that, early on, I really saw that I was drawn to the product side because over a relatively short period of time, I figured out that if I didn't truly have a partnership and an understanding of the needs of my customer, the solutions that I developed usually missed the mark. And that was very frustrating. Sometimes elaborate work would get done and then it wouldn't get utilized at all, and just felt deflating. And then over time, as I moved into leadership within application development, I kind of became that intermediary where I would help be the face to the business and really the bridge. So eventually I started describing myself as the bridge between business and technology. So I've had opportunities later in my career to move into product type organizations and work for Fortune 500 companies and as well as down below startups. I gained a broader understanding and appreciation for the effectiveness and the importance of both the true engagement and partnership of leadership and those that carry the understanding, the knowledge, and the desire to benefit from what we're producing, our products, and even our services if we're providing those as a product. So for the past 8 years or so, I've been working primarily as a consultant and a coach, usually in the context of agile methods and principles, but also with some traditional methods where those have been more appropriate. And really grown to love getting a chance to partner with the product organization and the key integration points with the actual end customer, the technical team, and leadership to help bring continuity and effectiveness there, and value, actual value delivery. So it's not a cliche. I hate that being a cliche.
Yeah. We were recently having a conversation about business value and effort. I'd love to pick that up. So I'm going to walk back. So I want to hear a couple of things, although we won't dive into those now. But I bet there are future sessions. And one I hear you talking about, there's a variety of places where companies are at, and some of we classically hear this mix of traditional and agile, and we're agile and all these different things. So one, I hear you kind of describing that in a non-judgmental way, like everyone's in different places. So as a footnote to that, specifically a question that comes up, at least in the CSPO classes I'm doing, is they'll ask that question like, well, we're traditional, we have product management, but you're talking about product owners. Maybe you can share a little bit like what you see that difference as, and what you've seen, or is there a difference between product management and product owners?
Sure. And I'm seeing that we're getting an echo when I speak. I don't know that I have any control over that with the buttons and dials available to me. But I'll try to speak maybe slightly slower and maybe slightly softer, and I'll watch to see whether or not our team says that's helping. But in terms of product management versus product ownership, I think the differences and the similarities vary significantly from organization to organization. So I've seen organizations where the full body of responsibility of product management was indeed bestowed upon the product manager, and that's generally quite a bit more broad than what a product owner bears. Now, again, in some organizations, they might have all the capabilities of a product manager, but they're called product owners because they're trying to adhere to agile roles and definitions. That's great. In the case where those are different, what I've seen most effective is if the product manager is really a leader in the organization and would have one or more product owners in their own teams so that there's complete collaboration, and the product manager, because they have such a breadth of responsibilities and a depth of level of requirements that they have to do, they can't be the day-to-day available party to the team like a product owner must be. But they provide access to the vision, leadership support, and active engagement with the teams in key ceremonies and activities and things, while the product owner carries that action-based authority into the fray, if you will, of building the product increment after increment. I've seen other situations where the product owner was effectively a product manager by title, but they had a narrow focus, and so their responsibilities were such that they could perform the duty well in terms of product ownership. And I've seen organizations where a senior level leader tries to take on the role of product owner and cannot possibly be there sufficiently, and almost every instance that's been pretty much a crash and burn. Product delivery doesn't meet expectations, and then sometimes that degrades into an undesirable situation.
Right. Yeah. I was chuckling there because I was thinking the same thing right as you said that. I've seen that too many times. I appreciate the passion and interest on their side, but do they have time available? And I heard you mention that. And I think you're referencing something I've seen plenty of times, which is it depends on the size of the company. Are we moving into a new market? Is this an established product? Do we have competitors? How fast is the marketplace changing around this? I think those things make tremendous impact. Where maybe part of a challenge for product owners is how do we I don't want to say simplify it, but like if I was in, well, I'm going to put you on the spot here, but we have these kind of conversations anyways. I would just ask off the cuff, what do you think as a follow up to that, and these nuanced differences between product manager, product owner, who's playing which role, what's their title, position in the company, all those things you just mentioned, which are different. What do you think the state of the art is out there in terms of the product? Do you feel the average product owner has what they need in terms of knowledge and understanding, experience, etc., to be successful in this new world of agiles that portrays what that work even looks like?
I'll give a shot at that, but I think in part we might have the situation of the doctor only sees patients who are ill.
It's true, yes.
And so generally, the folks that either I see in some private tailored training or in a coaching engagement or with leadership and getting down into conversations through that, is that they're not equipped, that they are struggling in various areas. And one of the most fundamental things is, how do I translate the value that we want to build into agile requirements that don't require strenuous iteration in order to get things right, or worst case, build, feedback, fix, show again, feedback, fix again. It takes 2, 3, 4, if they're doing Scrum sprints, to get something that's maybe not that complex done, because the challenge was at the product ownership, being able, to get the right subject matter experts engaged and provide the right visibility and understanding of the requirements. So the other place I see is, if they don't have sufficient access and influence over how maybe senior level leadership is setting expectations or is driving, maybe imposing change, and kind of pulling their teams from underneath them into other directions because of production support or a critical sales convention or a trade show that's coming up, and so they can feel like they don't have enough influence over the ship that they're trying to pilot.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, as a follow on to that, when we look at like, I'm still responsible as a product manager, product owner, to get this thing shipped or delivered, or there's an expectation XYZ is going to happen. It's a new big project. We are just talking about one earlier today, like this massive initiative that's going on. And you can almost feel that nervousness of like, oh, really? Like, how are we going to pull this off? So maybe you could walk us through, since Scrum only says, poof, you have a product backlog. You can maybe walk us through, for those who aren't familiar. And this is a little bit of that marriage of Scrum doesn't dictate, but maybe here's some good ideas or best practices. So since Scrum doesn't say, like, here's how to kick off a whole new product, you could walk us through, what does that look like, or how would you see that as a recommendation, maybe as a starting point? And that includes, in these larger areas, you got multiple stakeholders. We got to prioritize across their needs or across teams. Maybe you could share some about what that might look like.
Sure. So let's take the perspective first from an internal organization. So the customer is in-house, so they're basically captive audience. And so you have the opportunity to get participation, and you can use, influence among leaders in the development organization versus the business, or whatever that particular organization is, if they're operational or sales focused or serving external customers. But you can gain participation, but you really have to gain partnership. And if you're internal, then you're also a sunk cost. So some of the challenge is the amount of expectation in terms of how broadly and thinly you could be spread across multiple initiatives becomes an issue. So an intake process that allows you to do just enough discovery so that a clear idea of the merits and the benefit and the complexity or the risk and unknowns of one new initiative versus another is an essential part of the puzzle. And then I'd say even a health check before we engage on something, because if we're going to bring this into an agile team and an agile environment, unless the right engagement and clarity of vision and product need is available from the customer, from the sponsors and stakeholders, the likelihood of success is low. And if you're a precious resource there, then as an organization, they should want to spend it on things that they could definitely get return on. From the point that you do that sort of that intake, and you've got the ability to compare one product initiative versus another, then some sort of front end discovery work is going to be essential in order to make sure we have access to the right way to get clear requirements. And I usually draw people into a user story map type of a structure, using other visuals, whether those are journey maps or swim lane and workflow, or especially visual, maybe through wireframing, storyboarding. If I've got data structures that they represent logical business entities, not data tables. So, hey, development team, we're not trying to design the database for you, but we do need to express and visualize for you the logical structures. Some of that work, we spend a little bit of time up front getting the basics on it. We don't get deeply invested, so we start down a waterfall path, but we get the scope and the big picture. Now we bring the technical team in with us, and we start to partner with our stakeholders on what could solutions look like, so that early in the game, We don't start to walk down a path that's infeasible or costly or time consuming. And our dev team's like, gee, thanks. Um, so that's internal. Do I have time to go to external? Or do you
Um,
want to talk about that one a little bit?
I just want, yeah, if you don't mind, I piqued my interest
Absolutely.
because
You the boss.
some of this is you've seen this happen, right? You've seen them go down a path where now they've gone through and like, oh, this is great, but we can't either we can't really build that, or they finally show it to the customer way too late, and like this is not what I'm wanting or awful, right? I mean,
Yeah.
this is not you're not making this up. This is something you've actually seen play out more than
Yeah.
once.
Oh yeah. I've seen, and even in part, we're a technical team, they'll feel like, well, I don't really have sufficient requirements for some of these areas, or they're really gray and so they're risky. But we want to develop some quick wins. So we're
Yes.
going to grab the low-hanging fruit and we're going to make a fruit salad out of that so that we can serve it, in within a few sprints. And then that effort often extends out into several sprints. And then we finally get around to tackling the unknowns. And I saw a product where several months of effort was invested. We had an engaged customer, they were hopeful. And then we tried to tackle their most important things. And we found that we had a technical limitation that would make it not possible to deliver critical functionality. Well, guess what? None of that product was usable. Absolutely everything we'd done had to be thrown away. So we wasted a lot of time. What did we do with our trust level with that customer? We raised their hopes. This looks great, and then we dashed them on the rocks of, we're unable to complete this product for you. In other situations, I've seen products were move towards a effective, path ahead, and technically things are feasible, but we've implemented something like a user experience designer into the whole approach, which can be super effective. But if that person sort of sits on the business and product side only and promotes all of these different experiences, and we haven't integrated the development team's input on that, sometimes we can create technically challenging and costly and even performance costly solutions that are elegantly, visually elegant. We have to incorporate all of these things in from a full team perspective. We need to tackle our unknowns and our risks up front. There's very agile ways to do that with, kind of research spikes, proofs of concept, right? Even, what we'd call like desktop prototyping, things like that, where we're not writing code, but we're doing other things, but we've got the right folks involved so that they can assess that and say, yep, we could do this. We understand how to build this. You've got to get rid of your unknowns.
Right. And well, that's makes you think of at the higher levels, and then maybe this gets missed. So tell me if this is your observation. But I feel at times is we get focused on the Scrum practice. So let's say I'm a product owner. I was a product manager. Now I'm product owner. What am I supposed to do? Well, be in these meetings, and you need a product backlog, and make sure you write it in this user story format. But when I hear you talk about these kind of situations and stories, Bob, it seems like the overarching theme I'm picking up a bit is, look, it's about collaboration. There's ways we can get better collaboration, but we want collaboration with your stakeholders. We want collaboration with the team. All these things you're mentioning are ways that we're keep those conversations going. What does that look like if a product owner is doing a good job with collaboration versus I think they lost the plot and they're not collaborating really at all, but we check the box that we're using Scrum. What might that look like? What kind of feedback would you be giving them?
Sure. So I'd say with agile requirements, and I use that terminology because user stories are not the sum and the end all be all, right? They're a critical element and they're fundamental. But remember, if you go back to the origins of agile and Scrum, and I wasn't there at the very beginning of the game, but I got in, about 21 years ago, and a user story was a card sticking on the board, which was a placeholder for a conversation. It didn't intend to have all the details on it, but it intended to be a place where then all the right parties would be brought together to converse, and then those that were going to develop would capture what they needed, or maybe we'd scribe for them as we went through because we wanted them fully engaged in the conversation. But we'd work that out at the last possible moment, basically. Now, I will also say, because it occurred to me while you were asking this question, if as a product owner I get focused primarily on my backlog and having enough in the backlog, hey, you need to be 1 to 2 or even 2.5 sprints ahead of us, the Scrum Master will tell you, right? Or the development team will ask for. And if I just focus myopically at the product backlog level, how do I know when I'm finishing key pieces of functionality or features? How do I know at what point I should be engaging with my end customers so that we can really get our hands in and validate and really accept that, hey, when we mapped this particular theme or this big feature out, we broke it down into 6 epics, and those had about 18 stories, and it took us 4 sprints to get those done. But we just finished the last ones. Each demo, you've been excited and given us positive feedback. Now, is this a completed solution for this? Can you weigh this and now try to apply it to how you were going to use it so that we know that it's actually accepted in terms of the big picture and developing and delivering an actual piece of functionality in the product, not just really cool demos?
Yeah, I think that's a key piece of that validation step at the end. A specific piece of that. So Kim actually asked a question. She's listening in live, and she said, "If you're the product owner, are you writing the user stories?" Or you might phrase that as, "Do you have to be the writing them? Or are you the only one that writes them?" So can you tell us a little
Yeah.
about?
And do you create and write user stories? And I've lived in the role of product owner and written user stories for multiple different engagements. I'm usually a doer then and not a coach, but I'm very comfortable in that. And I also do a fair amount of coaching with product owners to that end in terms of how they can effectively do this. I see that the follow-on question: is there a difference between a Scrum product owner and an Agile product owner? For me personally, there's not, and I'm not exactly sure because if you read through the Agile Manifesto and the principles, I don't think you find the phrase product owner anywhere. So and I'm not sure if XP or some of the other frameworks have introduced that role, but generally I see it as an essential piece of the puzzle, and Scrum happens to do a pretty nice job of describing the role. Um, but if I'm writing user stories, I have to make sure that they're appropriate for what accurately captures what my customers are giving me, because they're the source of the requirements and the value. They're the ones that are going to be using the end product, not the product owner. We cannot be the proxy and sit between them and the team and not let the two come together. I also have to make sure that my stories are effective for the people who are consuming them and creating whatever we're creating, whether it's software, whether it's mobile apps, whether it's websites, or maybe it's digital content. Maybe it's working agreements or contracts and things to automate my procurement process and to streamline my vendor management practices. We've seen agile approaches used in that setting before. Well, does not have to be for software development, but that's where it naturally fits.
Excellent.
You're welcome, Tim.
We're at the last bit of our session. Maybe you could finish up on a high note with a success story. What would you say you've seen or that would be encouraging for others? What was a success story?
Yeah. So there were there's two that sort of come to mind. I'm going to stick with the one with the small organization that was building an end customer product, because we didn't get to delve into the outside world in a previous question. So that organization had a vision for creating software and integrating modern technologies for performing inspections, and they're primarily working in the rail industry here in the U.S. And they had a vision for a product to automate what they were doing with camera phones and Excel and creating reports, basically using a PDF creation tool. Just a lot of manual labor. They had no experience with software development. They had no experience with product ownership, and I had the opportunity to partner there to really work as both the doer in the product owner role while being kind of the scrum master, and then teaching and then kind of handing responsibility off to a product owner. And over the course of a few years, that person became very effective. And I think one of the critical things for them was that they were already a subject matter expert within the organization. And they had a passion and a vested interest in seeing this automated, completely integrated, customer portal type of an environment set up, because they were the inspectors at one point and they were the producers of these reports. It was very painful and time consuming, and often there were inaccuracies because, oh, I didn't mix the right photo I took with the right cell in Excel. And it took 2.5 years and some trial and error. But we reached the point where they were able to really, we fired me because they were fully capable of carrying the product forward. And I've gotten the chance to glimpse what they were doing for about another year. And they've got a production product that they're now, taking to trade shows and things like that. And they're bringing automation to an industry that really lacked it. So I was very impressed. And this was a very small organization. This was like smaller than 25 million in revenue.
Very cool. Yeah, I love the stories when you see the whole, almost like well, get to see it from start to finish, really, in that sense. So,
Yeah.
love that. We'll
And
have to go ahead.
I was just going to say one thing because I want to offer something that's applicable to our listeners, whether it's now or when this hits YouTube. Um, if you're trying to move into the adoption of agile methods and you don't really have a product owner role, there isn't somebody like that in the organization. Look to those subject matter experts where there's also motivation. One of the principles in agile is to start with motivated team members. So if they've got already the expertise, you could put them through training, get them, a coach to partner and ride along with them. If they've got a mission critical thing that they've got to get done, maybe that partner is going to do some of the doing while they're training, and you'll get pair product ownering as opposed to pair programming. That can be really effective.
Yeah, excellent advice. Appreciate the story, and I think you fleshed out a lot of areas where people walk into all this change and have a lot of questions, even if they did go through the standard 2-day certified Scrum product owner training. There's a lot that's important that I heard you describe. It it's not necessarily part of that class that they maybe have to figure out on their own. So a lot of help. I'd love to have a follow-up conversation because I'm also interested on my side of the relationship between product and leadership, et cetera. But we've had some of these side conversations before, but maybe we'll just make those
Yeah.
public conversations where we're doing a little interview as if we're having coffee or something. Well, thank you for the time, Bob. This is a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. Like you said, if anyone's missed this, you'll be able to catch it on YouTube or be able to share this. If this has been helpful to you, share it inside your organization from our YouTube channel. Just make sure to like and subscribe, and that way you'll get notified of that. We'll keep the information coming. If there's other topics that anyone would love to hear about or hear us have an interview on or having coaching conversations around, just let us know. Put that in the comments as well. Or follow me on LinkedIn and put those. You can message me directly as well. Happy to do that as a service back to the community that we're trying to help. Good luck on your Agile journey, and we hope to see you guys soon. Thanks everyone for joining us.